Hey, yo, what's the deal? Miss your boy Tag from Pro Wrestling Tag, you know what I mean? As of this recording, it is 7:13 p.m., April 2nd, 2026, but the upload time to this is actually 11:30, and I got a lot more information on, supposedly the reasons why Chris Jericho decided to go to AEW instead of WWE, right? And as I'm seeing some of these reasons, and I'm also sitting back and trying to process everything. There are some things that clearly don't make sense, in why he chose AEW over WWE, and the reasons and such, right? And this is from Meltzer, right? This is from Dave Meltzer. Keep this in mind, right? This is all from this piece of shit, Dave Meltzer. Right? Before I get into his reasons, I gotta say this. Chris Jericho is not needed in AEW television in 2026. Clearly. He's clearly not needed. Hold on real quick. Yeah, sorry about that. These fucking Muslims, out here in Fort Greene Park, they're just talking, but Chris Jericho is definitely not needed in AEW television in 2026. If you think he's going to be a game changer for AEW, especially, to get high ratings and such, man, you are fucking delusional. Beyond delusional. Right? And I'm going to get to him as well, because if this is the case, then... all right. This is from Dave Meltzer, right? Melts. Fuck ass nigga Dave Meltzer. Right? So, there's a lot of things for you to consider in this, right? So... This is what he said, okay? According to Dave Meltzer, All Elite Wrestling likely offered Jericho greater longevity, along with potential financial incentives and increased creative freedom, right? I'm gonna break down where all three of those fail, right? Where all three of those legit fail. He noted that while WWE may have provided a more stable audience environment, AEW allows more creative input, which could be a key factor at this stage of Jericho's career, right? Now, this is the key factor I want you guys to take with you, right? To hold on to. Meltzer added that Jericho, who is already financially stable, keep that part, right? Keep that part, keep that part to the side. Is likely prioritizing creative satisfaction and enjoyment, despite WWE being viewed as the less risky option in terms of crowd reactions. Jericho ultimately chose AEW after weighing multiple factors, including money, creative control, and long-term plans, right? So let me stop you right there. Remember when I said just now to hold on to that part where he's financially stable? If Chris Jericho, right, was looking to get paid higher than WWE from AEW, right? If he's financially stable, shouldn't the money not fucking matter? If you're really financially stable, shouldn't the money not fucking matter? I don't buy that one bit. I definitely do not buy that at all, right? If you're financially stable, you shouldn't give a fuck about the money at this point. And I'm pretty sure WWE was going to give him a big, they was going to definitely throw him a bag for sure. Okay? Now, the other thing too, right? When we talk about, let me go back to it. Let me go back, right? When we talk about creative control, right? The AEW offered him creative control. This motherfucker's coming off the worst year of his entire fucking career with this learning tree gimmick. Okay? This is why wrestlers do not deserve to get creative control. Because let's run shit down, okay? Chris Jericho has already ran through 2 stables, right? And he's not a good he's not, when it comes down to a leader of a stable, he's not fucking great. I mean, you got the Inner Circle and you got the Jericho Appreciation Society, right? How well did that group do? Did it put over anybody? No, you would have thought that they put Sammy Guevara, but no, absolutely not, right? Sammy Guevara is actually, saying that he's not being put on AEW television, right? I mean, Sammy Guevara would be great in WWE. Hands down. He'd be fucking awesome. Okay? And Britt Baker. Right? So, let me also add the other part too. Long-term plans, right? So, apparently, Chris Jericho signed, a new deal with AEW. And supposedly, and again, this is from Meltzer. Supposedly, WWE looked at Jericho just for, a retirement tour. And Jericho's like, that didn't really fit into his plan. So basically, he wants to still keep it going. He wants to still keep going. Basically, he's not even thinking about retirement at this point, right? The motherfucker's 55 years old. Okay? And I'm not saying age ain't nothing but a number, right? Which is true. But if you are coming off the worst creative year in your whole fucking career, and you still want to keep going, right? You're in a company where, by the way, they basically looked at you like you was a disease yesterday. They didn't even give a fuck about you, bro. I mean, they didn't care about you. They're like, whatever, right? And mind you, quote unquote, long-term plans, right? They had this motherfucker going out for 6 minutes saying AEW, Winnipeg, I'm home. And that's it. They didn't put him in any segments or none of that shit. And you want me to invest long-term plans, then you got to be out of your fucking mind. And then also, the other thing too, right? Hold on real quick. The other thing too, right, is the simple fact that, it's not only the long term, but the simple fact that you don't even want to put people over. You don't want to put people over, right? That tells a lot. That tells a whole lot. And let me get to Jericho, okay? Either Jericho is dumb, if he can't read the room, right? Knowing that the sickos don't want him, the AEW fans don't want him there. You know what I'm saying? You can't read the room. Then, man, you're beyond fucking delusional, bro. You are beyond delusional. And if that's the case, then maybe WWE might have did a big favor. Maybe they might have did a big favor by saying, fuck it. We don't need you at this point. No, I mean, we definitely don't need you at this stage. Because I also heard that they were talking about how he didn't want to give up his outdoor projects and shit, right? Like the podcast and stuff. I don't think that's the case. See, again, there's a lot of contradiction. First, it was that, right? And then I'm hearing that, it was a matter of money and creative control and long-term plans, right? But again, look at everything that took place. And you think he's gonna give you a big bang in the ratings? The fuck, you smoking crack? And there was a report from PW Insider saying that he signed a new deal, right? Like I said, I don't know how long this deal was for. They didn't say it was a long-term deal. I doubt it's a long-term deal because if they give this motherfucker 3 more years, then, oh my goodness, then that's gonna be really, really bad. You know what I'm saying? Let me tell you something. If what we got last night was a glimpse of this cornerstone Chris Jericho, ooh, do I feel fucking bad. Matter of fact, no, that would be good for AEW. That'd be good for them. You know what I mean? Because I guarantee you within weeks, they're going to turn their back on this dude again. You know what I'm saying? They're going to talk shit about Jericho again. Like they did before. You know what I'm saying? Like they, with the whole learning tree thing, the whole learning tree shit, they're like, oh, get off my TV. You know what I'm saying? Get off my TV, please retire and shit, right? Not gonna lie, he lost a lot of weight. He looked great. He did look great. I'm not gonna front. He did look, he did look really good, right? But again, we do not know. Nobody fucking knows what's going to take place, with this run. And again, I do not know if this is a long-term deal. This is a long-term deal, right? Or a short-term deal. I don't know. Nobody knows at this point. Nobody knows. I mean, maybe it could be for one more year. I don't know. I honestly do not know. But I know that if Jericho is this delusional to think that this next go around is gonna be a career changer for him, especially what we got yesterday. Ooh, man, oh fucking man, is he gonna be in for a rude awakening? And one other thing I want to bring up also, I think this is also a very important factor. On Twitter, I'm seeing how there's people who say, oh well, AEW, they handle retirements really great. So maybe he's seen, maybe he's seen how WWE was handling, people's retirements like Goldberg and Cena and AJ, and he didn't want to be the next casualty and such, right? At least they let their legends go out with a bang and such, right? Let me ask you a question, okay? Who did Sting put over on his way out? Who did Sting? What happened with Darby Allin? What happened with Darby Allin? Right? What happened with Darby Allin? What happened with when Bryan Danielson won his last match? Right? I don't even think he's fully retired either. Right? What happened there? What happened there? And you mean to tell me that you're gonna have Chris Jericho, right, go out the way that he wants to go out, in this retirement where it's only a little bit of people, right? Oh, I'm glad I brought that up. And I forgot to mention this. When he came out to the ring to speak, right, you should have seen this motherfucker's face. He's telling the crowd, cheer more. Cheer more. That tells you everything you need to know. Plain and simple. So if you think that this motherfucker's gonna go out, right, and get, and go out with a bang and not put people over, if you think he's just gonna go in and just win his last match in AEW and go out brilliantly and not put over somebody, if that's the case, oh man. Like I said, you reap what you sow. The AEW sickos, they better be careful. They better be really, really careful. Because man, if this second go around is just as worse than the first, then like I said, WWE might have made a great choice, basically bypassing on Chris Jericho. One other thing I forgot to bring up, okay? You signed Chris Jericho, but how many people do you have on your roster that you're not even fucking using that want out? I had mentioned about Willie Mack, right? But what about the other people that's there who you're not using, right? I'm sure there are people there in that company who definitely do not want to be there, right? If I'm a if anybody who is, pissed off about Jericho not coming back to WWE and stuff, I wouldn't even be mad. Because I'm pretty sure that this is not going to be the last of WWE bringing in some big AEW names. It's not going to be the last. You know what I mean? It's definitely, I would be real patient for 2027. I just say that. Anyway, guys, I'm about to be out. You know what I mean? I'm going to definitely holler at you mañana. I'm going to check y'all.